What's up? Hello, friends, it's me, Marty Itchram, the geeky American otaku. Well, it's been quite some time, about 2 months actually, but I'm finally back to making videos, and I'm going to try and do more. This time I mean it. Anyway, in case you're wondering, last month I had family visiting, so I had very little time to work on anything. So, I'm going to try and be more frequent with my videos. In fact, I've got a Let's Play planned. Yes, I did say a Let's Play, and you'll see it soon. Also, this past month, back on July 13th, I did it. I finally hit the big 4-0. Yep, 40, 40, 40, 40. Well, there's no time to dwell on that. Time to focus on enjoying life. They say age is just a number after all, and it's not an ending, it's a new beginning. Of course, there's not much I can do about this, my thinning hair. Anyway, let's not worry about that. Let's get to what we're here for. It's time for another episode of 15-Minute Game Show Reviews. Well, this is another review of another game show that had a very short run, even though it was actually a revival of a well-known and universally beloved series. In fact, you could actually say it's the biggest failure of what is considered by many the greatest game show of all time, and an otherwise black spot on a show with an otherwise spotless track record. I'm talking about the 1978 revival of Jeopardy!
This is Jeopardy! Now entering the studio are today's contestants. First, an equipment installer from Santa Ana, California, Todd Russell. And a homemaker from Seal Beach, California, Harriet Ottaviano. And our returning champion, a graduate student from Pacific Palisades, California, who so far has made a total of $6,025, Richard Prince. And now, entering the studio is the host of Jeopardy, Art Fleming.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, John Harlan. Thank you, my friends, and thank you at home. And welcome to Jeopardy, America's favorite answer and question game, where we give you the answers and you must come up with the questions.
Now, some of you may be thinking, wait, Jeopardy was revived in 1978 and it was a failure? Well, yes and yes. Let me explain. For those who don't know, 2 decades before the current version of Jeopardy became a nighttime staple that is still going strong today, nearly 40 years later, Jeopardy began as a daytime series on NBC and ran from March 30th, 1964, and aired until January 3rd, 1975, airing 2,753 episodes, when it was replaced the following Monday with a new game show from creator Merv Griffin, Wheel of Fortune. Anyway, after being off the air for over 3 years, Jeopardy came back to NBC on October 2nd, 1978, and it was called the All-New Jeopardy! However, this version only ran until March 2nd, 1979, at 108 episodes, and I'll explain why in a bit. As I said, the show was created by the legendary Merv Griffin. Born in San Mateo, California in 1925, Merv began his showbiz career in 1944 as a singer on KFRC radio in nearby San Francisco. In 1947, he ended up hosting his own daily radio singing program on KFRC, and in 1950 became increasingly popular with nightclub audiences, and his fame soared among the general public with his 1950 hit, a cover of I've Got a Lovely Bunch of Coconuts. I'm not kidding, look it up. Anyway, the song would reach the #1 spot on the hit parade, and it sold 3 million copies. I feel like an old man talking about this stuff. Most people never even heard of this stuff. Okay, anyway. Merv was then spotted by famed actress Doris Day in 1953, and she got him a screen test at Warner Brothers. Although he didn't get the part, things started going up from there for him. In 1954, he became fascinated with the new medium of television and eventually made his name there by hosting several game shows, both as a regular and a substitute. Starting around 1960, Merv became a recurring guest host on NBC's Tonight Show, and in 1962, the network gave him his own talk show. Although the Peacock Network's version only lasted 1 year, in 1965, Merv revived The Merv Griffin Show for first-run syndication, and he would go on to become one of the longest-running talk show hosts of all time, with the series finally airing its final episode in 1986. So if you've ever watched the Seinfeld episode where Kramer had the Merv Griffin Show set in his apartment, that's where this reference is from. Of course, Merv is also known for creating several game shows, most notably Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune, which are both still airing today. He also wrote the original theme songs and other music cues for both shows as well. Other game shows produced by Merv Griffin include Headline Chasers, co-produced with that show's host, Wink Martindale, a short-lived attempt at Monopoly, Ruckus, hosted by the amazing Jonathan, a magician, teen-oriented quizzer Click, which helped introduce the world to Ryan Seacrest, and his final show, Merv Griffin's Crosswords. Merv Griffin died in 2007 at the age of 82 from prostate cancer. The host, of course, was Art Fleming. A native of New York City, born in 1924, Art Fleming was a varsity Letterman football player in high school and at Colgate and Cornell universities. Fleming was also a veteran of World War II, serving for 3.5 years in the United States Navy as a pilot of a patrol bomber in the Atlantic. After the war, Fleming entered radio broadcasting, working at radio stations in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, Akron, Ohio, and finally his native New York. He later made television appearances on the NBC crime drama Man Against Crime as a stunt double for actor Ralph Bellamy. He also appeared on the ABC crime drama International Detective and his attorney Jeremy Pitt on NBC's Western, The Californians. He also appeared in television commercials and anchored the 11 o'clock news for WNBC TV. He would be spotted by Merv Griffin in a commercial for TWA, where Griffin thought Fleming was, quote, authoritative, yet warm and interesting, and he would ultimately become the host of his new game show on NBC, Jeopardy, which ran for 11 years and earned him 2 Daytime Emmy nominations for Outstanding Game Show Host. And of course, Fleming returned to host the 1978-79 revival. After the first run of Jeopardy ended in 1975, Fleming returned to acting, making appearances in movies such as MacArthur, starring Gregory Peck, and in TV shows such as Starsky and Hutch and Kingston Confidential. In 1982, he reprised his role as the host of Jeopardy in a cameo in the movie Airplane 2, the sequel, and 2 years later, in Weird Al Yankovic's music video, I Lost on Jeopardy! Fleming was offered the chance to host the revival of Jeopardy in 1984, but he turned it down due to creative differences, as well as the show being taped in Los Angeles, whereas the original was done in New York. The job, of course, went to Alex Trebek, a close friend of his. Fleming would continue to host mock Jeopardy games at trade shows, and from 1979 until his retirement in 1992, hosted a daily radio show on KMOX AM in St. Louis, and the nationally syndicated radio program When Radio Was, and he made 2 appearances on the PBS science series Nova. Art Fleming died from pancreatic cancer in 1995, 6 days before his 71st birthday. The same disease would claim Alex Trebek's life 25 years later. The announcer for the 1978 revival of Jeopardy was John Harlan. Born in Sonoma County, California in 1925, Harlan's career lasted more than 40 years, with his most successful being the Bob Hope specials on NBC from the 1960s until the early 1990s. Anyway, his game show announcing outings included You Don't Say and the 1970s version of Name That Tune, both of which were coincidentally hosted by Tom Kennedy. Other game shows announced by Harlan, either full-time or as a substitute, included the ABC revival of Password, Tattletales, Queen for a Day, where he met his wife, model Beverly Christensen, Face the Music, Catchphrase, Across Wits, Press Your Luck, Password Plus, Wipeout, Celebrity Sweepstakes, American Gladiators, and the 1989-90 revival of Jackpot. He also announced fake TV plugs for Weird Al Yankovic's 1989 cult hit film, UHF. John Harlan died in 2017 at the age of 91. The gameplay, well, if you've seen Jeopardy, then you know how it's played, but I'll discuss it anyway because that's what my channel is for, and of course this is for anyone who's lived under a rock for God knows how long, or if you live in a country that has never aired Jeopardy or had their own version of the show. Anyway, 3 contestants competed, and one of which was almost always a returning champion. The contestants faced a game board consisting of 6 categories with 5 clues apiece, 30 in total. The first round is known as Jeopardy, or the Jeopardy round. Contestants are presented with trivia clues phrased as answers to which they must respond in the form of a question that correctly identifies whatever the clue is describing. The dollar amounts in this version were $25 to $125 in increments of 25. The higher the value, supposedly, the more difficult the clue. The contestant in control would choose a category followed by a dollar amount, and the host would then read the clue. Unlike the current version, where contestants cannot ring in until the clue is read completely, contestants were allowed to ring in at any time and attempt to respond. A correct answer, of course, added the value to the player's score, but an incorrect response, failing to respond before the buzzer sounds, or not using proper phrasing, subtracted the amount of the clue, upon which the other 2 players attempted the response. Play on a clue ends if and when a contestant responds correctly, or all 3 contestants fail to answer either by not ringing in, incurring no penalty, or all answering incorrectly and thus losing the same amount. Upon which Fleming reveals the correct response. The contestant who last chose the last clue, right or wrong, got to choose the next clue off the board. One of the 30 clues, of course, was the Daily Double, and only the contestant who chose it was given the right to play it. The contestant would first make a wager of their current score based on how much they knew about the category in question. The contestant can wager anywhere from $5 to their current score. That's called a true Daily Double. Or they can wager the highest value on the board, whatever is more. A correct response, of course, adds the value of the wager to the contestant's score, while an incorrect response, or failure to answer at all, subtracts that value. Whether or not the contestant responds correctly, they choose the next clue. The Jeopardy round continues until all 30 clues are played or until time is called. Now this is where things get different from the Jeopardy gameplay we all know and love. At the end of the Jeopardy round, the contestant with the lowest score is eliminated from the game, but they get to keep whatever cash they have at that point, if any, as was common with the original 60s version. Now, only the 2 players with the highest scores go on to Double Jeopardy. The Double Jeopardy round, of course, is played the same as the first, but the material is harder, and now the dollar values have been doubled. In this case, from $50 to $250 in increments of 50, and 2 daily doubles hidden on the board. As always, the player with the less amount of money chooses first in Double Jeopardy. When the round is over, the player with the highest score is the champion, and the runner-up is eliminated, but still gets to keep their cash. Now, there was no final Jeopardy round in this version. Oh no, this is the all-new Jeopardy, so that means an all-new bonus round called Super Jeopardy. The champion faces a new board with just 5 categories and 5 clues apiece, now numbered 1 through 5. The goal here is to create a line of 5 correct answers, essentially a bingo, either across, up and down, or diagonally. If a contestant gives a wrong answer or fails to do so in time, they will incur a strike. Passing is also not allowed without a penalty. Like baseball, 3 strikes and they are out. $100 is awarded for each correct response if the contestant does strike out, but if the champion successfully gets 5 in a row, they win a cash jackpot starting at $5,000 and increasing by $2,500 for each successive trip to Super Jeopardy, regardless of whether or not they won the bonus round the day before. So the second trip was worth $7,500, $10,000 for the third, $12,500 for the fourth, and finally $15,000 for the fifth and final time. Therefore, a retiring champion could win $50,000 in the bonus round alone, although to my knowledge, no one ever did. Also, if a new champion defeats the previous one, that new champion must start again at $5,000. Well, that's how the all-new Jeopardy was played. Now, of course, we grade it. Now, like myself, most of you probably never knew about this short-lived revival of Jeopardy. I sure as heck didn't. I was born in 1983, and as far as I can remember, I always remember seeing Jeopardy on TV. Of course, that would be the longest-running version starring Alex Trebek that's still going strong, now with hosts Ken Jennings and Mayim Bialik. I eventually did learn about the original Jeopardy with Art Fleming when I got older, but the 1978 version didn't catch my eye until I read about it somewhere on the internet, either in the late 90s or early to mid-2000s. When it premiered on October 2nd, 1978, NBC placed it at 10:30 a.m. Eastern between their hit game shows Card Sharks with Jim Perry and, coincidentally, Alex Trebek's new High Rollers, replacing the soap for Richer or Poorer. Unfortunately, it also aired against the first half of CBS's mega hit, The Price is Right. ABC, by the way, aired no network shows in the 10 a.m. hour, and as such, Jeopardy was not able to find an audience. NBC didn't give up, though, and moved the show to 12 noon, where the original did quite well for many, many years. However, the daytime television landscape had changed quite a bit in the few years since, as by then, the 12 noon slot was preempted by many of NBC's affiliates in favor of local news or a syndicated program. Also, although it was now on after Wheel of Fortune, which is the case for the syndicated version today in many cities, it competed against the $20,000 Pyramid on ABC and the very popular soap, The Young and the Restless, on CBS. NBC then was forced to give up on Jeopardy for good, and Art Fleming stepped down as host after 2,861 episodes on March 2nd, 1979. Of course, Jeopardy would come back 5 years later, but that's another story. As for the show itself, well, it's almost impossible to wreck a tried and true game show formula like Jeopardy, but the 1978 version just felt like a different show. It played like the Jeopardy that we all know and love. It had all the challenging trivia and risks we expect. But it fell under the TV trope title of They Changed It, Now It Sucks. Most notably the part where the lowest scoring contestant is eliminated for the first two rounds. That is one of the biggest problems a lot of game show fans have with the 1978 version, mainly because there's a chance the returning champion might not end up making it past either the Jeopardy or Double Jeopardy rounds. That kind of takes away the excitement. There have been instances where the champion doesn't get out of Double Jeopardy if they finish with $0 or less and thus not get to play Final Jeopardy. They still otherwise get the chance to compete right up to the end. Also, not playing Final Jeopardy takes away more of the suspense, as that requires strategy on what the contestant knows or doesn't know about the final category and how much the players wager and allows for a contestant to come from behind and sometimes steal the championship. Even if the game is pretty much determined by then, when one player is so far ahead that the other two can't catch up, the other contestants can still play spoiler to determine second place and thus win a higher consolation prize. As for the Super Jeopardy bonus round, well, it was a nice idea, but it feels out of place on a show like Jeopardy. I also don't like the idea of how the bonus resets to its default value of $5,000 when a new champion plays it. Other game shows like Super Password or Scrabble had progressive jackpots that could go into the tens of thousands of dollars and could be claimed by a champ on their first day. I think it would have been more fair to play Super Jeopardy for either a progressive jackpot starting at $5,000 and going up by that much every day, or have it be a flat bonus of $10,000 or $20,000 each time. As for Art Fleming, well, he did a great job, of course. Jeopardy was his show for many years, and he was still associated with it even after he retired. Of course, now it's hard to imagine anyone else being Mr. Jeopardy besides Alex Trebek, but before him, Art was the man. He was very professional, as he was in the original 1964-75 version. He didn't always have the dry sense of humor that Alex would later become known for, but people didn't really expect that from Art. He would read the clues off the board clearly and loudly enough for the contestants to understand. He always finished before asking the contestant who rang in to respond. Art was also an avid reader and had multiple college degrees, so he kind of gave off the calm, intelligent, but never boastful feel of a college professor. That being said, I think the main reason the all-new Jeopardy failed, even with Art Fleming's return and the same challenging trivia, was because they changed a game format that worked so well for so long and still does that it didn't need to be changed. And that's probably why when Alex's version began in 1984, Merv went back to the original format, only he jazzed it up by now having a computerized game board, a colorful new set, and of course, more money than before. You know the old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And that's the case with Jeopardy. As such, the answer is my grade for the 1978 revival of Jeopardy. And the response, what is a C? Now, normally this is the part of the video where I talk about how I would revive the game show in question if given the chance. But needless to say, that's not going to happen this time, since Jeopardy is still going strong to this day, and there's no need to make any changes to a show that's still going strong 40 years later. or 60 years later if you count the original version dating back to 1964. Of course, there is a good possibility the nighttime show's 40th season may be in jeopardy, pun intended, if the writer's strike is not resolved soon. Hopefully it will be, because I don't know how long I can live without Jeopardy with the writers. Without the writers, there is no Jeopardy. Anyway, that's my most recent episode of 15-Minute Game Show Reviews. I'm going to have another video out soon. Until then, remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on Instagram and on SpaceHey. I'm Marty Yitchram, the Geeky American Otaku, and you don't need to phrase that in the form of a question.